About an hour with Jeff Carlson on the Apple Watch. This is MacVoices.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date.
Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And this is a special Take Control Books MacVoices event. We're going to spend about an hour with Jeff Carlson. He's the author of Take Control of Apple Watch, which covers Apple Watch and Apple Watch Ultra and all the details. We're going to answer questions from the YouTube chat room and just go back and forth on a couple of questions I have. And yeah, there you go. Jeff came prepared with all kind of audio-visual
I do a little salesmanship here.
Yeah, really. So, well, first, welcome, Jeff. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you for inviting me to do this. I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah, this is our second time at trying to do just one of these one-on-one interviews and involve the audience. And so we're hoping to get some questions from the chat room. But I have plenty of questions of my own. So we'll just start with that and then see who says what. So I'm curious, if somebody came to you and said, what is the number one reason I should buy an Apple Watch? I mean, we both know there are a lot of features, but if you needed to give a number one, what would it be?
That is an excellent question. All right, I'm going to try not to hedge or dodge because it'll kind of depend on your needs and already I'm second guessing the stupidity of this answer. But like, for example, if somebody came to me and said, what would be the number one reason why I should buy an Apple Watch for my mom for Christmas? I would say, depending on how old your mom is, being able to have emergency features and fall detection and, things like that. And, of course, I say this because, my mom and my mother-in-law are both older than I am. And so, there's some health stuff going on with the watch that can be beneficial. Like not even health stuff with them, but just some of the health features. If you are someone who is, fit and active, I think the health features such as activity tracking and, keeping track of steps and tying into Apple Fitness Plus, like those kinds of things are also really, really appealing. I know that people who are like hardcore serious about running have some reservations about the Apple Watches. There are other tools, and I'm not as plugged in to that group. Like, that would be a really good question for Adam Angst. But for most people who want to get a little bit more active, it provides a little bit of a boost, a little bit of recording and tracking. And what's sort of nice about that, and this is something that has happened to me recently, the watch and the health app on your iPhone keeps track of all this data, and it detects trends in a lot of that data. And so, for example, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got an alert from the health app that says there's been a change in your daily trends. I'm like, oh, geez, what does that mean? And basically it said that my average heart rate when walking, like exercise walking, is lower than it was, I don't know, 10 weeks ago or something, which means basically I'm in slightly better shape because my heart isn't working as hard, because as of the start of our school year, I've, been walking more than I did during the summer. So, like, that's kind of a neat little benefit, and it gives me a little boost. It compels me to make sure that I go and walk a couple of miles every day, and like those little incremental things. This is a very long answer, but if you wanted to just say, what's the number one thing, which was actually your question, and I veered way off topic, I have to admit two things: timers having multiple timers on your wrist at any time, at all time. It's amazing how often I use timers, whether I'm cooking or I want to take a 15-minute nap, or I use the alarm clock on my watch to wake me up in the morning, because I just have the haptic vibrations wake me up rather than like a really loud alarm clock that would wake up my wife. So like those kind of time-based things. And the second one is, and this is going to sound completely pedestrian, I know, the ability to immediately hang up spam phone calls. And especially in the last, 2 months with elections going on and Black Friday sales and all of that, like there's just been a whole bunch of just spammy phone calls. And my approach has always been, or it has been for years now, unless it's somebody that I know, I'm not going to answer. But I also don't want it to just be, ringing, especially during the day when I'm working, because like typically I've got my laptop in front of me, I have my iPad open on the side or down below, I have my watch, I have my phone. And if a call comes in, they all go crazy, and I'm listening to music and then it like interrupts the music. And so to be able to just like reach over and tap the little hang up button is strangely satisfying. Now, of course, the Apple Watch will do so much more, but those are the two things I keep coming back to, as in, here's this very basic feature that makes me happy every single time. And, like that constant reinforcement makes a difference. And I know that sounds weird, but that's where we are.
No, it doesn't. So let me respond to that, because first of all, I think it's really interesting that the first place you went with it was the health. And the second place you went was convenience, especially the timers, because right now that's very near and dear to my heart, because I have a washing machine, a clothes washing machine that the timer is now broken on, and I'm waiting for parts. And so I have to manually operate each cycle. So, wow. Every 10, 15 minutes, I got to go to the washing machine and advance the cycle. And the only way to reliably do that without messing up clothes is to tell the yes lady on my watch to, do it, because I might be in another part of the house and the alarm won't go off, but on my wrist, it absolutely will. So, that's perfect. But the convenience factor, yeah, I agree with you on the hangups, because just the idea that I can look down at any moment and not even have to go to my phone and see who's calling. I mean, the spam hangup is, yes, a perfect example, but also the idea that I'm able to curate my calls with my watch. And yeah, I never really thought about how happy it makes me, but that's a really good way to say it. It's like,
I know.
Yes, leave me alone.
Well, and also, I mean, let's extend the convenience there. There are many times, like, let's say I'm cooking and I get a phone call, but it's from my mom or my sister. Like I may have my hands full, but I can answer it on the watch and just use that as basically a speakerphone and talk to them. And, if it's something where I need to, wash my hands and clean up and maybe go to another room with my phone, like maybe that's a separate thing. But usually, they're just checking in to say hi. And so I will, answer the phone or answer the call on my watch and just, say hi and just be able to chat. And I'm still able to move around, and the speaker is good enough, the microphone is good enough, that it's not a bother that I happen to be, talking to my watch. I think it's sort of funny because I remember at the beginning when the Apple Watch first came out, there were all the inevitable Dick Tracy jokes. We're all going to be like, "Oh, hello, Chuck. How are you today?" Because like that had just sort of pervaded the culture. But the reality is, you turn it on and you move your hands around, you do whatever you need, and you can still have good short or medium length conversations. Again, like super convenient. Doesn't happen all the time, but those times when you've just been cutting vegetables and you really can't dig in your pocket to find your phone, You just answer it, and there you go.
So you reminded me, and I'd completely forgotten about this, but when I got the first Apple Watch that, was to take a call on, this is going to sound strange, but I was under a bed trying to plug in a lamp, because the only way to get
sound strange at all.
Yeah, the only way to get to the outlet was to crawl under the bed, drag the cord along and then plug it in. And of course, right as you got to the center of the bed, underneath there, the phone rings.
Right.
And so I tapped my watch and I had a conversation, and the person on the other end had no idea that, I was anywhere other than answering my phone.
Yeah.
And that was one of those kind of enforced tests that made me realize that, hey, this is that good. And it's that convenient.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to leapfrog on that just a little bit to also tie this back to health. And it's a good way of saying this. Like, I'm in fairly decent health. I'm, not thinking that I'm going to fall over and croak at any minute. But I am over 50. So I guess maybe I do feel like some days I feel like I might fall over and croak every minute. That's not the point of this. The point of this is one of the health features of the watch is the SOS emergency features. And so, if something were to happen, and that's I've broken my leg, or somebody nearby needs medical attention and I don't know where my phone is, you can call out to the S lady. We're not going to say her name just for good reason. And basically say, call 911 or, activate emergency services or whatever. And this infrastructure is built in so that, a phone call will be made to the, like a 911 dispatch. And it can be set up so that the people that you've designated as emergency contacts, they will get a message saying, I've never actually seen a message like this, but it's basically, hey, Jeff is having an emergency, contact him right away or whatever. And so from a purely personal standpoint, that's kind of reassuring. But from the standpoint of being able to help people faster in an emergency, regardless of what that emergency is, makes a big difference. I think our friend Rich Mogul, who is also an emergency responder, in addition to being a cybersecurity genius, he has said that being able to get to people faster because of something like this, literally minutes matter. And part of that, I think, is why Apple always has every year like a really touching, moving video about people whose lives have been saved or have, been helped in some way, or even the like the pre-medical stuff. Like, the watch can do an ECG reading. It will test the electrical fitness of your heart. Not to the degree that, say, an ambulance, an emergency responder would be able to do it, or a hospital. But there's enough there that can say, hey, there's something off. You should go get this checked out. And for a lot of people, they're like, I am just sitting here doing nothing and my heart rate went way up. And my watch told me that. And I called my doctor and they said, oh, well, your medicine is out of whack, or maybe you need, emergency heart surgery. Like, these are things that are actually happening and actually helping people. Now, I realize I've sort of veered into that, wow, you have to get an Apple Watch because it will save your life. That's not necessarily the case, but there's enough history with it now and enough science behind it to suggest that it can actually help in small ways or big ways. And like it sounds hyperbolic, but it's kind of cool, right? Because it's also a thing on your wrist that will also let you, turn on a flashlight and make sure you don't fall down the stairs when you take the trash out. That kind of thing too.
Yeah, and one of my favorite comparisons is the seatbelt in my car. I get my car, I put the seatbelt on. I don't expect to need it. In fact, it's probably been, it's been a number of years since I've needed it when, I was involved in a car accident.
Yeah.
Not my fault, by the way, but that's another story. Just to be clear. But, that time I needed it, and I really needed it. And it definitely saved me from serious injury. And so here, some of that might not be quite as dramatic. On the other hand, you hear really horrible stories about someone, usually it's an older person, but not always, who they fell on the steps, and they laid there for days before anybody found them, if anybody found them in time at all.
Yeah.
And so, I'm like you. I don't want to say, oh my God, it'll save your life. And, every 10 minutes it's going to do something for you. But at the same time, when you start to factor in all the other capabilities of the watch, it's a great first reason to get it and then explore some of the other stuff later.
Yeah, exactly. One last thing about that is like the fall detection is great, especially for elderly parents, elderly people for whom, falling can be a very debilitating thing. And what's nice about it too, I mentioned like, oh, okay, I've fallen. And so maybe I ask my watch to call 911, whatever. Well, what happens if I completely black out and I have fallen and I am unconscious? So if it detects a fall, it'll pop up a little thing and it will say, it appears that you've fallen. Is that true? And if, as in the case of me once, I actually got hit by a soccer ball and my watch was like, oh, it looks like you've fallen. I'm like, no, I just react poorly to getting hit by a soccer ball. But it popped up the thing. And so I was able to say, no, I did not fall. I'm fine. But if after a few seconds, there's no response, it assumes that maybe you are unconscious and just makes that call anyway. And I've known people and I've had relatives who have, had a fall. And in one case, she was out walking, just passed out in the middle of the street. And fortunately, there were some neighbors coming by who saw her and helped her, et cetera. And, that worked out fine. But who knows if those people hadn't been there, right? So it's thoughtfully designed. There's also a lot of technology behind it. And there's also a lot of, like technology and results and testing that's going on with a lot of research hospitals to see, how can we take some of this mundane everyday data and start doing something with it.
Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter. Visit macvoices.com/newsletter today, sign up, and stay up to date. So a couple times there, you have said you can have your watch call 911. So I want to take a question from the chat room that sort of falls in line with that. In order to use your watch to make a call, your phone has to be in some kind of reasonable proximity.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about buying the cellular Apple Watch so that it is a standalone cellular device? Is it worth the money? Is it a good idea? Is it something that just you should never do? Or is it something that maybe a lot more of us should be doing?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I'm hating myself because, again, it depends on your situation.
Oh, yeah. Well, but most of the things do, but
most of the things do. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think if you are someone who wants to go for a run, hates carrying your watch, hates carrying your phone, or you have other reasons to have a cellular line that's not a phone, then yeah, It's totally worth it. I will admit. So right now I'm wearing a Series 8 that I bought this year. It is not cellular enabled. I have bought the cellular ones every year. Well, sorry, every model that I bought has been a cellular one leading up to this. And I found myself, but largely because my habit is I always have my phone somewhere near me. And, especially, last 3 years of pandemic and early lockdown, I did not go very far from my phone because I did not go far, period. But I found that I would activate the cellular, which involved an extra cost with my provider. I go through AT&T, but I think all the other providers, they charge you some sort of a line startup fee because it's basically its own phone line, and then there's a monthly charge. I think it was like $10 or $11, and I'd use it to update the book and make sure that I was writing about the cellular stuff. Authoritatively. And then I found myself not using it and turning it off. So this year I just said, I'm going to save money and just buy the non-cellular version. I think if you have a really good reason for the cellular, then yeah, go ahead. If you think that you might have a reason for it, then it would be better to hedge your bets, spend a little bit more. I can't remember what the price difference is now. I want to say it's something like maybe $90. That could be completely wrong.
Yeah,
for the Wi-Fi. Sorry,
somewhere in that range. I think.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that range. And give yourself the option of activating that later, because you don't have to start off with it being activated. And if you use it and it's worth it, it's worth the monthly charge, then great. If not, then you don't have to have it activated. So that's the pay a little bit up front for the just in case, rather than do what I did, which was I don't think I'm going to use it, so I didn't get the cellular version. And if for some reason something changes and I find that I really do want the cellular, I'm going to need to buy a new watch or return this one and trade in this one. So yeah, in general, I don't think most people need it. But it is nice to have. And if you buy the Apple Watch Ultra, you don't have a choice. It's cellular enabled just because everything's packed in there, no matter, there's no other model that you can get.
So I've sort of been the mirror of you. I have not seen fit to buy the cellular watch up to this point. Now I'm rocking a 7 at the moment. I did not go to the 8 this time, but because I just sort of have a basic objection to the way that all the carriers are handling the activations of different devices. You don't love all the cellular carriers? It bugs me. Okay, so you want me to pay you an extra X number of dollars a month for my iPhone or my iPad to be on, and then you want me to pay you more to have my watch on. And it's just like, at some point, guys, come on. That said, however, I think that the next time I do buy an Apple Watch, I will purchase the cellular model, whether I turn the service on or not. But like you said, I will have that option, because there have been situations where, and happily no emergency situations, that it would have been very nice to be able to make the phone call on my watch and not have to come down off the ladder or come up the steps in the basement or, do whatever, just to be able to get within proximity of the phone. So, but I did want to ask, because you obviously have some experience with it. So if I turn my watch on, if I get my cellular watch and activate the service, do I have a separate second phone number for my watch, or is it just an add-on to my existing phone number? How does that work?
You technically have a separate phone number for your watch, but that's basically just how the cellular company tracks it or puts it on your bill. For all intents and purposes, your phone number is the phone number that is on your phone. And so everything comes through there. Just because like the watch as a device has to connect, like identify itself to a cellular tower. It has its own phone number, but you'll never use that number. I have no idea what the cell number was for my watch. It actually does the magic of saying that this is a call from your normal phone number that other people would understand.
Okay. So if somebody calls my regular cell phone number, it's going to ring on my watch and my phone. And
yes.
And if my phone is out of range of me, if it's a mile away, that call is still going to come through on my watch.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to be sure, because it can.
That's a great question.
It starts to feel a little confusing at times. So first of all, I want to welcome. We have some more people coming in the chat room. So folks, if you want to say hello in the chat, please do. If you have questions for Jeff or comments on Apple Watch, please make them there, and we'll get Jeff to answer them, just like he's answered my questions.
That's what I'm here for. Also, I might also mention that there's a Black Friday sale going on at Take Control, and my watch is one of the 50% off ones, I think, through tomorrow. So just
I think you meant your book, not your watch. You said your watch is on 50%.
Yeah. Sorry.
Which we will all take advantage of right here, right now.
Hey, there you go. Yes.
So
this book, Take Control of Apple Watch, is now 50% off until tomorrow. So, whatever you want to do with that information, I'm not one to tell you to buy the book. Oh, wait, I said buy the book. Anyway, enough with the hard sell.
Yeah, exactly. So another question in the chat room, and I think this is an interesting one, and I just lost it. Where is it? There he is. How do you use the Apple Watch to use HomeKit? Do you find it easy to use with HomeKit? Do you use it with HomeKit at all?
Yes, a little bit. Surprisingly, so there is a home app. It's a little bit clunky, and I think that's just in keeping with Apple always being clunky with the home app, no matter what you're using it on. It's fine. It has your favorites. It has, separate rooms. You can turn lights on and off, et cetera. Actually, we can show it if you want to jump there. But I actually use it more with the S woman by speaking and saying things like for example, in our house, we have two porch lights, one on each side of the house, that are HomeKit. They're Hue bulbs, I think. They're set to turn on at a certain time. I think when sunset happens. It's been a long time since I set it up. But the one that's nearest our driveway automatically turns off at 9 o'clock so that it doesn't disturb my kid whose room is like right there. Well, so if we are out later than 9 o'clock, we come home and the porch light is off. So while I'm in the car or even driving down the block, I will sometimes, get the watch in front of me, say, "Hey, magic woman name, turn on the porch lights." And then when I pull up, the light is on. So it's, again, like a little tiny inconvenience, or maybe I will use it to, turn on a space heater that we have upstairs, or, set a scene. So I find using that just through the voice commands to be the more common way that I use HomeKit with it. I don't have any locks set up. I touch on it in the book. There are some keys that you can. There are some locks you can use the watch as a key to open, or you can have it opened like on a certain door. And I have those mostly because I'm in a slightly older house and none of my doors are straight enough to actually fit that reliably. Like they all need to be what's the word, trued, I think. And so it doesn't make sense for me to get any of those locks. I also don't currently have any video security monitors or anything like that, but I could, if I had something that uses HomeKit video, I could bring that up on my watch and see who's at the door or whatever. So my experience is fairly limited, and it kind of feels like, as with all of HomeKit stuff, Apple can do more, but hopefully with the new Matter technology now working its way into these devices, hopefully things will improve over the next year or so.
You bring up an interesting point that I sort of think about, but I forget. And that is, and I want to be real careful so I don't trigger anybody's devices, including my own. But if the microphones on all the HomePods and all are terrific. In fact, sometimes I wonder if they might be too good. But, they can't account for distance. But if I'm on my Wi-Fi network at home, I can always raise, do the Dick Tracy thing in a way, but raise it up and say, hey, S lady, turn on this, turn off that. And it's guaranteed she's going to hear me at this distance right here. She's going to hear me, no question about it. And that is something that I found myself doing almost unconsciously, especially if I'm in certain parts of the house where there's definitely no HomePod or anything like that. But I still can make her do my bidding.
Right. And also, like this is also kind of a small thing, but you don't even have to say the magic words. Like sometimes it just feels weird that you're just, saying that, or maybe you are in a room that has, excuse me as I knock everything with my hand gestures, that has computers or HomePods or whatever. You don't want to just like blurt it out sometimes because you don't know which one's going to answer. So, like what you can do is you just press and hold the digital crown and you say, turn off the star filament light.
You got it? Coming right up.
I think. So, like that is a way to, I don't know, do it a little less obtrusively and guarantee that you're just having an interaction with the lady on the watch. And so, and now if I wanted to, let me switch to this. We'll try this. So I'm going to, changed me again.
Jeff's getting fancy on us now.
You can't handle the fancy. Okay. So side note, this is a very cool feature that seems really ideal for what we're doing here. In system settings, so here's your iPhone. If you go to regular settings and then go to accessibility, there's Apple Watch mirroring. And when you turn that on, it uses AirPlay to show, look at that. I just reached my move goal by gesturing wildly during a live broadcast. Okay. Hey, good for me. Anyway, so you can see now, like you can see my watch on my phone. So like you're looking at my phone there on the right. You can actually control your watch from this. So like, for example, if I tap on the little digital crown here, it takes me to my apps. I'll just do it here on my watch because it's a little bit easier. And if I go to the Home app, and it does take a moment to update because that's just sort of how it is. But here's my star filament light, and I can turn that back on.
And there it is.
And I can also see, like, for example, at the top here, I have two devices that aren't responding. I've got a sort of a temperature range because I have the thermostat in our house connected, and then I also have like a little motion sensor, temperature sensor up in my the office that I share with my wife, and then a bunch of lights and there's a power plug on. So, and if I wanted to, like here's the star light that I have just back here. By tapping, let me go back. By tapping the little 3-dot icon, whatever that is called, I can then use this to make it brighter or less bright or whatever. So there you go. Practical demonstration.
Very nice.
Oh, so, and then what was my, yeah. So the home app was the answer to the question. Okay.
So I have to admit, you just taught me something that I'm not sure I didn't know, but I definitely forgot. And that is holding the digital crown and just not having to use the S lady word. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I knew that, but if I did, I had completely forgotten it, because usually I just do this and say, hey, S lady, and so that's a nice specific little trick. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're like us, there's so many devices that will respond to that prompt, and sometimes you don't know which one it's going to be. So it makes it a little bit easier. Also, like for example, when I go on a walk in the morning, I want that to be recorded. Now, if I wanted to, let's go back here. I could, go to my app screen, and I could go down and I could find workouts or whatever. Or if I press the side button, which is the little button, and that's actually what it's called. It's just called the side button, which I find sort of hilarious. You press that, and it will give you the last 10 apps that you've launched. And so if I go to workout, then I can, start an outdoor walk, which is what I usually do. Or as I'm walking out the door, I typically just hold the button down and say, start an outdoor walk.
Starting your workout.
And it just does it, which is just, a little bit more convenient.
Yeah.
I got to pretend I'm walking.
Jeff is back in the next edition of MacVoices to finish off our About an Hour With session, where he took questions from the YouTube chat room, talked about watch face customization, what apps he uses first thing in the morning, and a whole lot more. That's next time on MacVoices. We'll see you then. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.